Will Smith just wrapped a movie that made almost nothing at the box office. And somehow, that's not even the most telling thing about where his career stands right now. Because behind the scenes, in rooms you and I will never sit in, there's a much bigger story playing out. One about who picks up the phone when a studio needs a leading man, and who they quietly skip over. And right now, Will Smith is being skipped. Before we get into why, hit that subscribe button, because what happened to Will Smith could happen to any A-lister. And by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly how fast Hollywood can turn on someone it once called untouchable. For almost 2 decades, Will Smith wasn't just a movie star.
He was a guarantee.
Studios built entire summer release calendars around him. Independence Day, Men in Black, Hitch, I Am Legend. The man had a stretch where nearly every film he touched opened at #1. Insiders used to say his name alone could get a mediocre script greenlit because audiences would show up regardless. That kind of power in Hollywood is rare. It takes decades to build, and it can vanish in seconds. You already know the moment everything changed. The slap heard around the world, live, unscripted, in front of the entire industry. But here's what most people don't talk about. It wasn't really the slap itself that did the damage. Plenty of celebrities have blown up on camera and recovered within a year. What actually hurt Will Smith was what came after. The apology videos. The long, drawn-out media rollout explaining his feelings. The sit-down interviews. To a lot of viewers, it looked like healing. But to studio executives watching quietly from the sidelines, it looked like something else entirely, a liability that wouldn't stop generating headlines. And that's the part we need to slow down on, because this is where it gets interesting. Hollywood doesn't actually care about morality the way people assume. Studios have worked with plenty of stars who've done far worse and kept their careers intact. What studios care about is risk. Predictability. Can this person walk into a press junket and not become the story? Can they be trusted not to blow up a $100 million marketing campaign with one unscripted moment? After the Oscars, the honest answer studio executives kept landing on was, maybe not. So, what actually happened next? Quietly, without press releases or public statements, several projects that were reportedly in early development around Will Smith slowed down or stalled. Not canceled with a bang, just paused. Delayed. Deprioritized. The kind of quiet freeze that never makes headlines, but tells you everything about how an industry really feels. Stick with me, because the next part explains something most fans still get wrong about his comeback attempts. Will Smith did try to come back. Emancipation was framed as his redemption story. A serious, awards-worthy role meant to remind everyone why he mattered. It underperformed. Then came Bad Boys, Ride or Die, leaning on nostalgia and a franchise built for him, and while it did respectable numbers, industry insiders noted the box office fell short of what a Will Smith action film used to guarantee. The uncomfortable truth is this: the audience hadn't necessarily turned on him completely, but the automatic, no questions asked trust that used to fill theater seats on opening weekend? That was gone. Now compare that to how Hollywood has handled other stars caught in scandal. Robert Downey Jr. went to prison and still became the highest-paid actor in the world a decade later. Mel Gibson said things on tape that were genuinely career-ending, disappeared for years, and is now directing again with major studio backing. So the pattern isn't as simple as scandal equals exile. What separates the ones who come back from the ones who quietly fade is timing, humility in how they handle the fallout, and whether the industry sees a clear financial reason to forgive them. Some analysts argue Will Smith did almost everything backwards. He over-explained instead of going quiet. He stayed in the spotlight instead of letting the story die naturally, and that kept the moment alive far longer than it needed to be. Others push back and say that's an unfair double standard, that a black actor apologizing sincerely gets read as weakness while a white actor staying silent gets read as strength. Either way, the comparison tells you something important. Recovery in Hollywood was never really about what someone did. It's about how the industry decides to talk about it afterward. And here's where I want you to actually pause and think for a second, because this is the real lesson buried in this whole story. In Hollywood, talent isn't actually the currency that keeps you at the top.
Trust is.
Studios aren't investing in an actor's ability to perform. They're investing in an actor's ability to not become a distraction. The second that trust cracks, No amount of box office history protects you. If you're finding this breakdown interesting, drop a comment telling me who you think deserves a deep dive like this next. I read every single one, and a lot of you have picked winners for future videos. Now here's the part that even industry insiders debate. Is this permanent? Some entertainment analysts believe Will Smith's situation is recoverable. That time, a few smart smaller roles, and one genuinely great performance could reset the narrative. Hollywood has short-term memory when box office numbers are on the line. If a studio believes a Will Smith film can make money, reputation concerns tend to quietly take a back seat. Money has a way of forgiving almost everything in this industry. But others argue something deeper broke. Not with audiences, with the executives themselves. The people who greenlight projects, who decide who gets cast opposite who sign off on $100 million marketing budgets. Once a star becomes something a studio has to manage rather than simply promote, it changes every conversation in every boardroom, long after the public has moved on. So, which is it? Is Will Smith one great role away from full reinstatement? Or is this a slower, quieter fade that Hollywood will never say out loud? Honestly, the industry itself seems split. What we do know is this: the phone calls that used to come automatically now require convincing. The scripts that used to land on his desk first now go to someone else first. And in an industry built entirely on being someone's obvious, safe, bankable choice, that shift matters more than any headline ever could. If this kind of behind-the-scenes breakdown of how Hollywood really operates is something you want more of, make sure you're subscribed, because we're going deeper into stories like this every week, the ones the industry doesn't put in press releases. And before you go, let me know in the comments, do you think Will Smith fully earns his way back, or has that door already quietly closed? I'll be reading through the replies.